Oh, you can't get out the wrist. Right there.
It's already on.
بسم الله. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة كل بدعة ضلالة كل ضلالة في النار. We continue the chapter, and from polytheism is to perform or to seek what they call al-ghawth, or the verb in the Arabic language is called Istigaathah. Don't put the Quran on the ground. Just put it up there for a minute. You need to use it? It's just for manners, that's all. Manners. Yeah. As we continue the chapter, what they call that from polytheism is to seek or perform what they call Istigaathah, which is a type of worship which we discussed from last lesson. We said that Istigaathah is a type of dua, it's a type of supplication in which one seeks relief from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in times of adversity. Like we talked about from last lesson, we said that every Istigaathah is dua. Every Istigaathah is supplication. But not every supplication is Istigaathah. But we said that Istigaathah is a dua khas. It's an exclusive, specific type of supplication, invocation to Allah. Where we said it's a time, it's in times of adversity, it's in time and when one is facing those tremendous hardships, or whether it be life-threatening, or what have you. When one raises his hands in dua, seeking the help of Allah to relieve him of that which is in, of that adversity or that life-threatening situation, that type of dua is called Istigaathah. This is what we mentioned from last lesson, in brief, just to get us back on one page, because we know it's been about 2 weeks since we did last class. We just reiterated what we mentioned from last lesson, so we could be on one page. Right. So we said that an Istigaathah, was what? We said it's a dua al-khas. It's a specific, exclusive type of dua. And we said that every Istigaathah is dua. But not every dua is Istigaathah. As we talked about from last lesson, بينهما عموم الخصوص. That Istigaathah is akhas. It's more specific, more exclusive. And just dua itself is more aham. It's more general. Whereas dua can be in times of adversity. And dua can be made in times of ease. It can be done for his brother while he's in a time of ease. So that dua is what everyone, more general. Whereas Istigaathah is in one situation, where it's in a situation of when what one is facing, those times, or those hard times, or those life-threatening situations, where one is to raise his hands to Allah Ta'ala to remove him of that which he is in, what he is facing. We also mentioned some of the ayat, where we stopped there from last lesson, speaking about some of the usul, of which you will find from the science of usul al-fiqh, in the ayat in which we talked about that type of asl, in which you'll find the great Imam Muhammad Amin al-Shinqiti, Sahib al-Adwa al-Bayan, from the ulama of tafsir in our days and times, is Muhammad Amin al-Shinqiti, rahimahullah, rahmatu wasi'ah, who died approximately, maybe about, if I'm not mistaken, about 30 years ago, roughly, rahimahullah. And he mentioned that tremendous book called, or tafsir, books of tafsir, in which every talib al-ilm, if you can, acquire, to buy the book called Adwa al-Bayan. As he mentioned in this book, talking about the science, this asl, what they call an usul, in the ayat, if you look at your books, talking about some of the words you'll find. If you look at the ayat, your book, which is in this chapter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ excuse me, that was before that. He says, وَلَا تَدْعُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَنْفَعُكَ وَلَا يَضُرُّكَ فَإِنْ فَعَلْتَ فَإِنَّكَ إِذًا لَمِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Do not invoke besides Allah what does not benefit you, nor does it harm you. We said last lesson, لَا يَنْفَعُكَ وَلَا يَضُرُّكَ, it does not benefit nor does it harm you. We talked about the meaning of that is what they call sifatun kashifa la mafhuma laha. It's a sifatun kashifa la mafhuma laha. جيء بها لأجل التوضيح والبيان لبيان الواقع. We talked about that the meaning of the ayah, do not invoke besides Allah what does not benefit you nor does it harm you. If one was to extract and had ignorance with him in light of this ayah, they would think that it's permissible to make dua to something that does benefit and also that it does bring some type of harm. But that's not the meaning of the ayah. As we talked about, if you look to the books of tafsir, this is what they call, was an example of sifatul kashif. That this ayah, which contains in it this type of science we talked about, لا ينفعك ولا يضرك, it does not benefit you nor harm you. This particular clarification was called sifatun kashifa, meaning it's a characteristic or description in order to put emphasis on something or give more clarification, not to extract an understanding. For example, to say that it's permissible for me to make dua to something other than Allah as long as it benefits me or it harms me.
That understanding is not that's not extracted from the ayah. You understand, everyone? If a person would say, for example, I made dua to other than Allah and it answered me, or for example, I asked that thing to ward off an evil, and it warded off the evil. As we know, this has occurred. Certain people who practice polytheism, maybe for one of those two instances, for example, he made dua to something other than Allah, and it just so happened that Allah had written down for that thing to happen for him, and the Qadr had agreed with his what? Him making dua to that particular what? That particular statue, or to that particular idol, or that which is associated with Allah as partners in worship. Now, here in this instance, at the end of the day, the one who answered was Allah, and that which was that idol which one gave that worship to, it would seem as if it was answered him, or it benefited him. But in actuality, the one who answers dua is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, فَذَرْنِي وَمَنْ يُكَذِّبُ بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ سَنَسْتَدْرِجُهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ وَأُمْلِي لَهُمْ إِنَّ كَيْدِي مَتِينٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, leave me for those who belie this hadith, meaning the Kitaab, what Allah revealed is the truth. We will set them up with a trap where they do not perceive, and I will give them what they want. وَأُمْلِي لَهُمْ, meaning I will give them what they ask for. Verily my plot is strong. Meaning, someone right now is to go to church and they called on Jesus, the son of Mary, and invoked and directed their supplication to Jesus, the son of Mary, the Isa ibn Maryam, alayhi salatu wasalam. And that supplication was answered. Does that mean that Isa ibn Maryam now is worthy of worship? And does that mean also likewise he was the one that answered the dua or the prayer of the individual? Based upon these ayat, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarifies the reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying He's the one that still answers their dua. But however, He misleads them and set them up with a trap in order to make them think that that thing that was invoked other than Allah actually answered them, in order to mislead them even more. In order to make them go deeper and deeper in more what? Misguidance. In order to lead them astray and go deeper in their what? In their deviation. So it's not the fact that they were answered by that thing they associated with Allah as partners, that thing answered their dua. However, it was Allah that answered them. But however, one will think that him raising his hands to other than Allah, for example, he makes dua to the dead, or he makes supplication or invocation or prayer to the one who's dead in the grave. From those practices of the mystic so-called Sufiya, which you'll find them that they make dua to the so-called their awliya from the Sufiya and those who are engrossed and are totally from the ghulat or the extremists from the Sufiya. Whereas you will find that they worship the dead and they make tawaf, or they also likewise, like we said, make supplication to the dead, whether they be righteous or not. And you'll find in certain instances where their dua is accepted. Like we talked about, we said, based upon this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers their dua. To make them think that that thing that they have associated with Allah as partners in their worship, answered them. In order to make them go further astray in their misguidance. So based upon this ayah, if you look at your books, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَدْعُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَنْفَعُكَ وَلَا يَضُرُّكَ. Do not invoke besides Allah that which does not benefit you nor harm you. That which does not benefit or harm you, this is what you call sifatun kashifa. لا مفهوم لها جيء بها لأجل بيان واقع. That this is called sifatun kashifa. It's called the characteristic or a description that is brought in order to show more emphasis, and also likewise to give more clarification in order to show the reality of something, to put forth more emphasis on it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, do not invoke besides Him what does not benefit you or harm you, in order to put emphasis on what He's trying to lay down of the truth. Not in order to extract from the ayah the understanding, which is, if this thing does benefit you or harm you, go ahead and invoke it. That's not the meaning of the ayah. You understand, everyone? This is what we talked about last lesson. I don't think we need to talk about it further because I gave a numerous amount of examples and details on this particular ayah. The next ayah you'll find is Sheikh Hamzah Abdur-Razzaaq rahimahullah. If you notice in the ayah, Allah Ta'ala says in His book, وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ فَلَا كَاشِفَ لَهُ إِلَّا هُوَ وَإِن يُرِدْكَ بِخَيْرٍ فَلَا رَادَّ لِفَضْلِهِ يُصِيبُ بِهِ مَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ وَهُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, if Allah was to touch you with some type of harm, there's no one can remove it except Him. There's no kashif. There's no one that can remove it or ward it off except Him. And if He wants for you good, then there's no one that can repel His virtue or His blessing or His bounty if He wants to give it to someone. He says He gives it to whom He wills. يُصِيبُ بِهِ مَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ وَهُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Allah Ta'ala says in His book that if Allah wants to touch you with some type of harm, there's no one that can remove it except Him. We talked about in numerous ayat ya ma'ashar ikhwan that Allah Ta'ala is in control in everything in this existence, ultimately, even though at the same time we have our own choice. We have our own choice to choose between good and evil, but at the same time our will falls behind the will of Allah of what He allows to happen in this existence. The creation has their will, and Allah Ta'ala, as we know, has His will likewise over the creation. And the will of the creation follows behind the will of the Creator. Being that the case, one has to realize that whatever happens to you of good and evil in this existence, if Allah Ta'ala wants you to have something of good, no one can stop it, no one can ward it off, no one can hold it back if Allah Ta'ala wants to give it to you. Based upon the dua that one makes after the salat, every time he prays, especially in those fara'id, especially in those obligatory salawat. What was I saying? I forgot. Okay. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for someone, or if He wants to give you some type of good, no one can hold it back if Allah Ta'ala wants to give it to you. What do you say after the salat every time you finish? Allahumma la mani'a lima a'tayt, wa la mu'tiya lima mana'at, la yanfa'u dhal jadd minka al-jadd. When you make that dua, the meaning of it is based upon what we're saying here. If Allah Ta'ala wants good for you, and He wants to give you some of His rahmah, whether it be of money, whether it be of wealth, whether it be of status, whether it be a righteous, beautiful wife, whether it be of any of the good things of this dunya. If Allah Ta'ala wants you to have it, you will have it. No one can stop it if Allah wants to what? Give it to you. That's the reason why we have to have the i'tiqad. Nothing what we possess or what we have, except it is by Allah Ta'ala, by His mercy and by His will, that He wanted us to have it. A lot of people will think and they will blame, for example, a lot of things that take place in this dunya. For example, so-and-so messed it up for me. So-and-so put his poison in and messed up, for example, my relationship with my wife, or so and so said something to the boss that I had at my job, whereas I had all the perfect qualifications in order for me to attain that job. I know someone called and they ruined what I wanted or what I was seeking. If Allah Ta'ala willed, those things, regardless of what took place or those factors that might have affected, of course, we perceive to affect the situation. If Allah Ta'ala wanted you to have it, you would have had it. And that person who tried to poison or mess up your situation, they would not even listen to him. They'd be like, yeah, you're saying all this, but at the end of the day, who cares? And still would have give you what you wanted. But Allah Ta'ala did not want you to have it, that means you did not have it at the end of the day. And that's the reason why we say, قَدَرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. If Allah wants you to have something, you will get it. No people can try to mess up your situation as much as they can. Ultimately, it goes back to what Allah wants. Allah Ta'ala says in His book, which is Surah Al-Fatir, Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَا يَفْتَحِ اللَّهُ لِلنَّاسِ مِنْ رَحْمَةٍ فَلَا مُمْسِكَ لَهَا وَمَا يُمْسِكْ فَلَا مُرْسِلَ لَهُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. Allah Ta'ala says in His book, Allah does not open up or give any type of good of His bounty, His blessing. He says, ما يفتح الله للناس بالرحمة فلا ممسك لها. If Allah wants to give it to someone, no one can what? No one can hold it back. وما يمسك فلا مرسل له من بعده. And what Allah wants to hold back, what He does not want to give to someone or someone of His slaves, no one can give it to him after He's held it back. No one can give it to him after He is what? Held it back. So ultimately, the affair is what? لِلَّهِ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَمِنْ بَعْدِ. The affair was for Allah from before and after. And like we talked about before, like we said, I have witnessed things in my life where people have tried to come in a situation, and I've seen it happen. When people tried to come in order to mess up the situation of mine. I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but I know that they said some things. And they came to mess up a certain situation. And I sent a message or a letter to someone. And I said, give it to so-and-so. They don't know what to do when they receive it. They never gave it to them. So they went back, they never gave the message. Never gave it to them. Right? Just listen. So then, 2 months went past or 3 months went past. A person picked up, that person stole, the letter fell out of their pocket. Someone picked it up, read it, and said, what is this? Right? What's this letter? The person was just dumbfounded. That's nothing. It says here that this was supposed to be given to someone. This is the letter that so-and-so we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. We were just looking for this. You had this for about 3 or 4 months? But see how if Allah wants an affair, it's going to happen. If Allah wants something to take place, it's going to happen. No matter what a person wants to try to do in order to mess up your situation, if Allah wants you to have it, you will have it. If Allah does not want you to have it, you will never have it. So a lot of brothers, they resort, or sisters, they resort, somebody put their aid on me, somebody did put their magic on me, somebody probably called the job and messed it up for me. At the end of the day, Shaykh, if Allah wanted the will, these things will never happen to you. You understand, everyone? This is the reason why we learn this aqidah. In order for us not to conduct ourselves like animals in this dunya, and to be like these kuffar out here, we don't have the proper guidance to know when something happens. They know ultimately Allah allowed it to happen for a reason. Like Khidr had said to Musa, when the actual hudhud or that woodpecker had landed at the end of the boat, at the end of the story, what happened with the adventure of Musa and Khidr, when the actual bird dipped his beak inside of the water and pulled it out, And then Khidr said to Musa, my knowledge I've been given, and the knowledge I've been given, the knowledge you've been given, it's nothing similar to that, except that that bird that took his beak, pulled it in the ocean, and took it out. That's our knowledge compared to the vast knowledge of Allah to be with Allah. That's our knowledge. That little bit of that little bit of different water that came out of the beak of that little bird, that's our knowledge. Allah says in His book, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. You have been not given enough knowledge except a little. That's it. Just compared to a drop of water to the vast ocean, how it looks. Is that anything? That's the vast knowledge of Allah. We're not going to say the resemblance, of course, but that's the example that was struck to show the vast knowledge of Allah compared to ours. You understand, everyone? So the ayah, as it says in the book, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwan. Notice Allah says, وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ فَلَا كَاشِفَ لَهُ إِلَّا هُ. No one can remove except Him. Notice Allah did not mention in the ayah. He says, وَإِن يُرِدْكَ بِخَيْرٍ فَلَا رَادَّ لِفَضْلِهِ. Notice He did not mention this first in the first part of the ayah. It says, if Allah was to to touch you, afflict you with some type of harm, He said, no one can remove except Him. Then He says, وَإِن يُرِدْكَ بِخَيْرٍ. So notice that the ayah, which was talking about evil, or what was talking about some type of harm, notice Allah did not ascribe it to Himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which the creation does not ascribe evil to Him, even though He allows evil to happen. And even though He created it. But as far as the description of evil, where it's done out of just pure evil, then it's not ascribed to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Due to the ayah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Jinn, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says clearly upon the tongue of the jinn, where He says, when the jinn had mentioned about the evil, He says, وَإِنَّا لَا نَدْرِي أَشَرٌ يُرِيدَ بِمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَمْ أَرَادَ بِهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ رَشَدًا. Notice in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that when the jinn had mentioned about the evil, they said, and we do not know if evil is intended or if Allah wants from them guidance. Notice that they did not ascribe evil to Allah, but they said if evil is intended. They did not say أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِهِمْ شَرًّا or أَرَادَ بِهِمْ ضُرًّا or أَرَادَ بِهِمْ شَرًّا. He didn't mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted from them what? Evil. He says وَأَنَّا لَا نَدْرِي أَشَرٌ يُرِيدَ بِمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَمْ أَرَادَ بِهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ رَشَدًا. We do not know if it was intended for them evil. So they had matters in order to know that evil is not ascribed to Allah. Because the Mashiach of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not allow anything to happen except that it is coupled with hikmah. You'll find that Ibn al-Qayyim talks about the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which you'll find when he refuted some of those who negated the sifat of Allah, that you'll find that he mentioned in his refutation where he says how some of the sifat of Allah necessitate each other. If you negate one, then you negate another. If you negate one characteristic, then it's important to negate another. For example, allergies. Sorry. For example, let's just say you negate it or you affirm. Let's start with the affirmation first. The word khalq, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates, that type of characteristic, khalq, there's no way one can have creation or create something except that he has ilm of what he's creating. There's no way that a person can create something unless he has what? Knowledge of what he's creating. So the word or the characteristic khalq necessitates what, everyone? It necessitates ilm. It necessitates ilm. So if one was to now create, who is him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, alone, of course, then that also affirms what? The characteristic of the call sifat al-ilm. So that's what he mentions. It says, you'll find that the characteristics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they all necessitate each other, and if you negate something, it's upon you to negate the what? Others. You understand, everyone? Going back to the example, what we mentioned in here. You with me? Going to the example which we mentioned in here, this is the same character, same example. Here is the Mashi'ah of Allah, the will of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not just allow things just to happen by His will, except that there's another characteristic behind it, which is called hikmah, which is wisdom. There's no type of Mashi'ah that's done just mujarrad Mashi'ah, just mere will. That's it. It just happened just to happen. There's nothing behind it. There's no reasons behind it. There's no causes. There's nothing that's going to come as a result of it. There's nothing. It was just done just for mere will. That's it. No, we say that the Mashi'ah of Allah Ta'ala necessitates another characteristic, which is called hikmah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not allow anything to happen in its existence except that it was behind it a hikmah, wisdom behind it. It is not done just out of mere Mashi'ah. So if you affirm the Mashi'ah of Allah, then it's upon you and binding upon you likewise to also affirm whatever you want, sifat al-hikmah, the characteristic of wisdom. Because the characteristics of Allah, like we said, especially what Ibn al-Qayyim was refuting the Ash'a'ira, where he says if you negate certain characteristics, it's binding upon you now to negate others. And if you affirm some, then likewise you have to affirm the what? The others. You understand, everyone? So notice in the ayah, it says that if Allah was to touch you with some type of harm, no one can remove it except Him. Notice it says in the second part of the ayah, وَإِن يُرِدْكَ بِخَيْرٍ. So Allah says, if He wants for you some type of good. Notice that the context is what, everyone? Different. The first part of the ayah says if He what? Afflicts you, touches you with evil. Right, everyone? Then the second part of the ayah says what? If He wants for you good. Why? Like we said, evil is not ascribed to Allah. That's or harm or evil or that those affairs in which we perceive to be evil is not ascribed to Him, even though He allows it to happen, and even though He created that which is evil. He created shaitan, He created iblis, He created all these things which are what? Which are evil, that have evil in them, as a test for us. To see if we're going to actualize our ubudiyyah of Allah. To see if we're going to actualize and purify our worship of Allah. But at the same time, evil is not ascribed to Him. Whereas we say that evil is to you, rather the Prophet ﷺ, like we said, the hadith which is Sahih Muslim, where he said in that long dua al-Istigaathah, where Allah, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, said, Allahumma wajjahtu wajhi lilladhi fatara as-samawati wal-arda hanifan wa ma ana min al-mushrikeen. Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin la sharika lahu bidhalika umirtu wa ana awwalul muslimin. Allahumma anta al-malik la ilaha illa ant. أنت ربي وأنا عبد ظلمت نفسي واعترفت بذنبي فاغفر لي ذنوبي جميعا إنك لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت واهدني لأحسن الأخلاق لا يهدي لأحسنها إلا أنت واصرف عني سيئها لا يصرف عني سيئها إلا أنت لبيك وسعديك والخير كله في يديك والشر ليس إليك أنا بك وإليك تباركت وتعاليت استغفرك إليك. What's the Prophet ﷺ? Now, if I'm supposed to make that dua al-Istiftah now, that long, I think everybody would go, is he committed some type of bid'ah? If a person really practiced the sunnah, you would see some things. Truly. But that dua, the Prophet ﷺ said it, the point of reference in the dua is whatever you want. He says, وَالشَّرُّ لَيْسَ إِلَيْكَ. Evil is not to you. But Allah at the same time, what do we say, everyone? He allows what? Evil to happen, He's in control of it. Ultimately, if Allah wants it to happen, it will take place. But at the same time, we still not only affirm the sifat al-Mashi'ah, the characteristic of will of Allah, what He wants and what He intends, still it necessitates also something else, which is what? Hikmah. You'll find that the Ash'a'ira from the deviant sects that negate the will of Allah coupled with hikmah. That's the reason why we always mention this on a lot of different occasions. You'll find that they would say, for example, They'll say, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that ayah. They'll say that لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that ayah, or the lam here, is not called lam al-hikmah. Because we know that lam is called what, everyone? Lam al-hikmah. You'll find that some of the people from Usul, or some of the people from Ahl al-Ilm, call it lam al-illah. Lam al-illah. They go to call it lam al-hikmah, lam al-illah. Lam al-hikmah, clear. Lam al-illah meaning the reason. The reasoner for why. It's correct. Lam al-hikmah or lam al-illah, meaning the sabab. The reason for the creation is for what? They say, the al-Sha'ira say in the ayah, the lam here is lam al-sayrura, which doesn't make sense. Lam al-sayrura, meaning that I have not created mankind and jinn except they will become to worship Allah Ta'ala. So they try to flee away from the word what? Hikmah. And just affirm the what? Mujarrad Mashiach. That's it. It's not coupled with what? Hikmah. Negate that, and they say lam is not lam al-hikmah, nor is it lam al-illah, rather it's lam al-sayrura. Meaning, so eventually, inevitably, it will become the worship of Allah. But that's not the reason or the wisdom behind the creation. Yeah, you understand, everyone? Is it clear? They call it lam al-sayrura, which is incorrect. We'll stop there. Because we can brothers have to pray, people want to pray, I don't want to press the brothers. We'll stop. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك